You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Mission Log Prodigy, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Episode 32, The Last Flight of the Protostar. Part 2.
Welcome into another episode of Mission Log Prodigy, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm Marina Kravchuk.
And I am Charlene Schmidt. Just like our flagship Mission Log podcast, each week here on Mission Log Prodigy, we discuss each and every episode of this animated series, discover what makes each of them special, and we see if there's any morals, meanings, messages that we've learned.
This week, we set sail on a voyage with The Last Flight of Protostar Part 2. Please remember that Mission Log Prodigy is an in-depth review podcast, so if you've not seen the episode yet, you may want to put us on pause, watch the episode, and then come back to hear us talk all about it.
That's right. Mission Log Prodigy is produced for YouTube and as a regular podcast, so please be sure to engage all the buttons, do the like and the subscribe thing, and leave us a review, ideally 5 stars and saying nice things. We'd really appreciate that. And you can also follow us on social networks. We are on 2 of them now. We are on X, formerly known as Twitter, at ML_Prodigy, and then also now on Instagram at Mission Log Prodigy, one thing, to keep up with all of the updates, and we'll send out reminders for cadet voicemails and a whole lot more, plus giveaway stuff, which we'll talk about in just a moment.
So before we jump into all the information and the recap, let's remind everybody why our podcast is so unique. We want to hear from the cadets, the younger Prodigy fans out there who would like to share their thoughts on the show. Right now, we would like to hear what our cadets thought about a tribble called Quest. So please record a voice message and tell us the following. What is your first name and age? Did you like the episode? What was your favorite part? And what did you learn? And then send your file to missionlog-prodigy@roddenberry.com. And please make sure it reaches our inbox no later than September 28th.
That's right. And before we really get going on our episode, we have one more thing, and that is to talk about the giveaway. And this is where you can win some really cool Prodigy merch, such as all 3 Prodigy novels in their own case. That'd be pretty cool. And that's just one of the prizes that you can win. So head over to the link in the description of this episode for the link to enter, and go to the Roddenberry Entertainment YouTube channel, where you'll find a video that we recently posted. It'll tell you more about the giveaway and the prizes and all the good stuff. Speaking of which, stay tuned to the end of the video, because we'll be giving you a secret code that you can use to enter. Now, with all of that said, let's kick things off for this show by answering the same questions that we ask of our cadets. So, Marina, did you like the episode?
Oh, yes. What a ride. Or should I say sail? What a sail. It's a fantastic ending to what I think is arguably one of the best 2-parters Star Trek has ever had. And not just Prodigy, I'm saying the entire franchise. It's a fantastic 2-parter. We have a great ending to it, a lot of character building just within these 2 episodes. So this was absolutely great. What about you?
Yeah. Yes, love it, love it, love it. And I do not disagree with your assessment. This is one of my absolute favorites. It rose to the top on first sight. Like, love at first sight is real. And it was with this episode, this 2-parter right here. I adore it. I love what it offers, the growth for our characters. I mean, you said it. I'm just repeating what you said. So how about you talk about your favorite part?
The best part, and I did not expect it. When I originally watched the episode, that particular scene, I had to stop and literally rewatch it several times in a row, because I thought it was absolutely beautifully written. And that is the heart-to-heart that Chakotay and Dal have in the middle of the episode. It's a great highlight, both for the episode, for the 2-parter, and it's a fantastic character moment for both of them. You know, it's a connection. Chakotay brings up his Voyager past and basically talks about, he's basically mentoring Dal in this regard, and I think that serves as a great point for Dal recovering his confidence as a result.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's gotta be that scene. What else could it possibly be? It's a top Trek moment. So, again, I'm just agreeing with what you said. This is got more to say.
This is kudos to Aaron, who happens to be the writer of this episode. In this episode, it literally hits every single point. It's just so incredibly well done.
It does,
and it's all superlative basically. We have. I can't really even say like if there's anything. I mean, I have, and we'll bring this up. Like there were couple of moments where I'm like, I'm not quite sure what we were getting at. But between Chakotay and Dal, the two main figures, I feel we got some really excellent growth.
Yes, yeah. For those two characters, wow, I'm just so in love with all of that. Well, how about lessons? What did you learn?
A very beautiful one, because that applies regardless who you are, what you do. Whenever you're feeling lost, it's best to find where you need it most. And it's just so lovely. Like, I have no other word for it. It's a wonderful, lovely statement, and I think that's probably the key lesson of the episode for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that really is the standout here. So you went with that one. I'll try and think of something else. How about every job matters, not just being the captain. It's related, but a little bit of a tangent aside.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. So thank you for your answers. And now it's time for the episode's recap.
Okay, this is The Last Flight of the Protostar Part 2, written by Aaron J. Waltke, directed by Sean Bishop. As Voyager recuperates from its attack by the Loom, the EMH is making sure Janeway is sufficiently recovered from her injuries. Her shoulder, specifically, which was damaged in a shuttle crash. The longer Voyager goes without hearing anything new about the cadets, Chakotay's and the Protostar's whereabouts, the more Janeway questions if she made the right call. She put a lot of faith into what Wesley said, someone she barely knew. But Dr. Noam has tracked down someone who does know Wesley, his mother, Dr. Beverly Crusher. How is he, she asks. She hasn't seen her son in years. And although she wishes that he would make more time to see her, she knows that he's got a good heart. She trusts that he knows what he's doing. Janeway wishes she had that level of maternal trust, and Crusher tells her that maybe she does, but with her crew. Speaking of which, the cadets are hard at work prepping the Protostar for a little sailing trip. They will use the antimatter Adric collected and combine it with the deuterium gas in the vapor ocean to get the warp drive working again. That's right, they will float the Protostar on a giant swirling gas cloud. As long as they maintain forward momentum, once they collect enough gas, they'll combine it with antimatter, and that reaction will send them to the stars. But first, they must move the Protostar off the beach. It takes some leverage, but eventually the HMS Protostar sets sail. Everything goes perfectly for just a moment, and then Murph sounds the alert that the ship is being pulled into a reef by the wind current. Dal's incompetence at the jib rears its ugly head as he tries to adjust their bearings, but it takes the efforts of Gwyn and Chakotay to scrape by. Chakotay reassigns Dal to rope coiling duty, but from here on out, Captain Chakotay expects smooth sailing. Things aren't going smoothly among the crew, though. Jenkins a little too explicit about the fragility of their situation for Rock Talk, and Majel gives Zero the cold shoulder when they offer a helping hand. And Dal is sulking, alone, contemplating the glimpse of his future he wasn't supposed to see. Chakotay approaches and is willing to listen, so Dal opens up. As much as he wants it, he doesn't think he will ever become a captain. How can he be worthy of the title if he's not a good enough leader for his crew? And if he's not a captain, then what? Chakotay can relate. When he was young, he was lost too. He thought that joining the Maquis would give him a sense of purpose he was looking for, but that didn't happen until he became Janeway's first officer aboard Voyager. He wasn't a captain, but he was part of something greater. Chakotay advises Dal to be where he is needed most, wherever that is. Right now, that's rope duty. Murph interrupts the moment, informing the rest of the crew that they're approaching their destination. The deuterium is at the eye of the storm, and the storm is testing the hull integrity, as well as Zero's insides, which no longer want to be inside. Everyone hangs on tight as Janeway steers the ship away from angry eels and through the storm. The wind tears the solar sail and eventually rips it from the ship entirely. Time to take cover below deck. Without the solar collector, the ship is losing emergency power, and hologram Janeway along with it. And without a working rudder, they could miss the eye of the storm. Unless they do it manually. Then Janeway could use the rest of her power to charge the collectors and give them all a fighting chance at success. It's risky, of course, but it's their only shot. It takes everyone's strength, save for Zero and Jankum, but the power of leverage frees debris stuck in the rudder. The Protostar is in prime position to collect the deuterium in the storm's eye. The Bussard collectors hum away, and Chakotay is elated. But then a rope snaps, sending Chakotay overboard. Dal goes after him as Rock, Gwyn, Majel, and Murph hold onto his rope. But the rope isn't long enough, and Dal discards it as he swims through the vapor ocean to reach Chakotay. Rock, Gwyn, and Majel think they've lost them both. Zero can no longer sense them. Alas, they are both quite alive, and they hitch a ride with a pack of eels back to the Protostar. Now filled with enough gas, the ship's engines come back to life and send the Protostar into space. Hologram Janeway reactivates and congratulates the crew on their success. She informs them that Voyager is 3,000 light years away. It'll take them forever to make contact at this rate. But Dal isn't worried. He, Chakotay, and their crew just rebuilt a starship. Why not build a star? As always, to be continued till next week.
Oh, there is so much. How? We keep saying it every time we record. How do we manage to do, how did they manage to do something like this in 20 minutes? It's extraordinary.
The economy of writing is truly some of the best I've ever seen in anything on this show.
Yeah. There's nothing extraneous, and everything is just so spectacular. So
yeah,
I have quite a lot of observations because we do get a lot here. I mean,
do
both the references and other things. So speaking of references, you mentioned that EMH is treating Janeway's shoulder. As he working on it, it reminded me that scene in Voyager's episode Scientific Method, where he's doing some heavy duty massaging, where she's literally suffering more from the massage than forever what the original ailment is. And I kept thinking, I'm like, that's kind of like that, where she just goes, oh my god, while she's trying to record the Admiral's log. So
yeah.
It hit me almost immediately. I don't know about you.
No, I did not think about that, but now that you've put that in my brain, I can't unsee it and totally see where you're coming from with that, which I don't know if that is a testament to maybe the EMH's lack of skill as a masseuse, or if Janeway's back was just that bad in Scientific Method. I don't know, but the shoulder injury, I don't think is going to do her any favors. I mean, it looks like this adjustment, whatever she got from the EMH, it was a lot more painful than she would have liked, and maybe it's lingering for a little bit, and that got me wondering, like, do injuries like this in the future require ongoing physical therapy like they would now, or is it like a much shorter time span and then you're okay because the technology is that much better? I wonder.
Yeah, it is. I mean, obviously medical science is almost next to magic, but what I thought was, seeing how much damage Janeway must have accrued through just the Voyager years. I mean, she obviously had other things happen to her before she became the captain, but from random scrapes to full-on Borg assimilation, I'm curious, like, in terms of treating things, like, there's got to be some kind of, like, accumulated effect. What, by the time you get to be Admiral, will be like, all right, try not to break that ankle again, because then we're going to need to replace it. Remember, there's a moment in at the end where she crashes the shuttle in Devourer of All Things in part 2, I think, and she gets out of the rack and she's like, that used to be easier. So she probably is reaching that threshold where it's like, well, enough is enough, no more injuries. Speaking of Janeway in general, I like the fact that we get that moment of doubt where obviously things were happening. I mean, and she is the commander who thinks on her feet, so she had to, go on with, obviously Wesley appeared as if he had a better handle on what needs to happen in order to deal with the temporal snafu that we're dealing with. But the fact that she's doubting her decisions, she's worried about the kids. She doesn't know what's going on with, is it actually going to help, especially, finding Protostar and Chakotay. And this wonderful balance where Tysus and Nome basically come in and like, well, you made the best decision you could based on information you had, basically.
Right.
And then, of course, Nome, who apparently has some connections in Starfleet, or I should say Starfleet Medical, seeing how, by the looks of it, Picard and crew weren't able to get a hold of Dr. Crusher for decades, but somehow he manages to get her, conferences her in to talk to Admiral Janeway. That was a great surprise. All of a sudden we get Dr. Crusher appearing in season 2 of Prodigy now. I mean, we just had her voice and her sort of hologram in season 1, but
that's right.
It's fantastic to see Gates McFadden again.
Oh,
in
yeah.
her
How good.
animated form, of course. So
Yes,
I
yes.
love that episode. I thought that was a great choice. I mean, don't you think, like, the fact that as a character witness, so to speak, for Wesley is of course nobody's better than his mom.
Maybe short of the Traveler, but I imagine he's a little tougher to get a hold of at this point. So
Yeah.
Beverly it is, but how good is it to see her? Like you said, this was not expected.
Not
only
at
was
all.
Wesley not expected when we started watching season 2, but another Beverly Crusher appearance just, oh, that's great. I love it.
Yeah. And she was perfect in the sense of that, it's exactly Dr. Crusher the way she is in all the other Trek productions that we had, where
certainly.
her trust into what her son is doing, even though it's obvious that she doesn't even know what's going on with him, and
No.
yet she trusts that he has just good intentions at heart, and I did find that little dig at Picard that he has other priorities at the moment. So,
Yeah.
that was a nice scene. I like that discussion a lot.
I did too. I think she maybe had just a little bit of a dig on Wesley too. Just
Yeah,
for a
it's like
time
you
traveler,
haven't
she doesn't
seen
make
him.
much time for mom.
Delightful.
Yeah. What's another observation you've got?
Let's see. Well, kind of jumping forward a little bit, when they're trying to get the ship to actually float into the vapor ocean, and it gets stuck on a rock, which is like the most prosaic problem ever if you think about it. It's like, oh great, it's stuck on a rock. I thought it was such a delightful little twist where Chakotay actually quotes Archimedes. I mean, supposedly quotes Archimedes, give me a place to stand on and I will move the world. And then of course it gets repeated later on when they're dealing with the broken rudder. And so Gwyn and Majel is like, that's exactly that. That's a great, way of working the problem. Let's use it again. So a delightful little, the touch there with quoting Archimedes. I love that.
Yeah, that was nice. Speaking of that scene, okay, we got to talk about Dal being really optimistic about using the little runaway to loosen a whole starship off of this beach. That visual of this teeny vehicle trying to move the big starship was hilarious in my opinion, but it reminded me of so many flashbacks to growing up in a snowy climate where this sort of thing happens all the time. You're going to get stuck in snow and mud and it's miserable no matter what it is. And I just thought, if without the leverage, maybe they needed a piece of carpet or some kitty litter. I know that would work in a shovel. You always have those in your trunk when you live in the snowy climes.
That's too fun.
Also, I loved how Murph just hangs on the bar for the leverage. Did you notice that? Like, he has no weight to him, so he's just like, I'd help if I could, but I can't.
Well, he's still trying. But I was thinking about that scene that it's also kind of reflective of the way Del kind of again reverts to this, kind of chip on his shoulder. He's, having issues with authority, in this case, Chakotay, obviously.
Yeah.
That's, sort of like, oh yeah, I know how to deal with the problem, and then he can't deal with the problem. So I thought that moment kind of like very nicely bracketed precisely one of the problems that Del has. Speaking of Chakotay, actually, I know it's not something that's just, oh, great. Chakotay is perfectly fine now. The fact that we do have him, this whole thing where, his hope is restored, his spirit is restored. So he kind of is back to a degree to his usual, just very calm, strong, silent support, if you will, but basically mentor-like himself that he tended to come across more often than not. And I'm also very impressed that I don't recall if that was ever mentioned on Voyage or not. He sure knows his nautical stuff. I mean, all this terminology and, making all the, the crew do, like, you do this, you deal with the rigging. I was like, that's pretty amazing that, all of a sudden Chakotay is such a nautical buff.
Right? You remember that episode of Voyager called 30 Days where apparently Tom Paris is the sailing buff?
That's right.
No, that should have been Chakotay. That would have been a great episode for Chakotay. And I even got to argue that on our flagship podcast, and I will die on this hill. But he does seem to be back to himself a little more. He's got some vigor. He's got some energy in his voice. He's definitely less grumpy, for sure.
Yeah.
Like they've shaken the rust off the Protostar, and they've shaken the rust off Chakotay.
Yeah, very much
and
so.
he's giving orders, much to Dal's chagrin. So another observation about Chakotay, let me know what you think about this. I've always liked Chakotay with a bit of salt and pepper in his hair. Do you agree?
Well, it is a good look. It's certainly more fitting than wearing something that looks like for a guy in his, well, in this case, he's supposed to be in his 50s now, right? 50s or
definitely
early 60s.
In his 50s, yeah,
so,
if not more.
To have a pitch black hair might be a bit of a question mark. Is that at the same time, I would also quote what was said about Picard being bald. It's like, in the future nobody cares. So I'm sure it's like whatever he's gonna go for, that's fine. It's his choice. But in terms of the character design, I have to say that Chakotay has, it's a great likeness and it's a really good design for the character.
Yeah,
he certainly looks really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked it in seasons 1 and 2 of Voyager, where he had a little bit of a salt and pepper going just back then, and then broke out the hair dye. Look, not judging, but I liked the other version better, and now we're coming back to that. It's full circle, and now there's even a little bit in his beard too.
Something a little bit more serious than salt and pepper look. I liked what I mentioned as what I feel is the main lesson, and that is finding when you need it, like finding the role to play. That little moment between Gwyn and Majel when they're replying to Dal, who's complaining, like, that beach bum is now giving us all the orders. But they're like, no, we have to play our part, whatever that part may be, and that. Not only it's the lesson of this particular episode, but it also harkens precisely to what EMH was saying in the very beginning, when Dal was like, we're just sitting, we're not doing anything. And he's like, no, everybody has a role to play on the starship. You don't know what it may be necessarily, but you will have one. So I like the fact that we, keep having all these little meta moments referencing the previously filmed scenes.
Yeah, they're calling back, and they're not even telling us that they're calling back. They're just doing it, and it's so nice. I love that. Speaking of little meta things, okay, did you notice how the jib, a.k.a. the solar sail, looks roughly like a Starfleet Delta? I mean, it's in gold and everything. Branding. You
know what? Until you just said that, I actually haven't. Because I was like, well, yeah, I was more impressed by the fact that they used solar collectors to actually make a working sail. I was like, that's great. It kind of reminded me of the Bajoran solar sail that we had at DS9, sort of like in concept.
Ship.
Yeah. So, but the shape. Well, here we go. Yes, the little golden thing.
It's kind of big. It's like it's a little more soft. It's not as angular of a delta, but it was totally there in my eyes.
Yeah. Going back to Janeway and specifically hologram Janeway. Well, first of all, just as a sort of side note, we have an episode where we're kind of going back and forth between Protostar and Voyager A. So you have the Admiral Janeway, and the next scene is going to be hologram Janeway. How on earth does Kate Mulgrew actually manage to make them sound so different? It's like, on one hand, it does register that, yes, it's the same in the sense that, well, hologram Janeway is based on the actual Janeway. And at the same time, it's two completely different characters. They sound alike, they sound completely different at the same time. And it blows my mind.
Yeah. I'd love to know what she does to tweak her voice just a little bit to sound more like early years Janeway. Janeway. For the hologram Janeway, whereas I feel like Admiral Janeway is more today Kate Mulgrew. Yeah, it's a little bit deeper, a little more gravelly.
She's more mature. She's far more experienced, I suppose, to where it's like, things have to be done, so they need to get done. And again, going back to hologram Janeway, that little bit that we have where everybody's together and hologram Janeway and Chakotay are basically talking through the plan. So it serves as a very nice sort of exposition. So everybody's sort of caught up on what exactly the plan is, and simultaneously that explains how a warp core works. That you have to have the matter-antimatter reaction, and for that to work, you need deuterium gas, and so on and so forth. And how on Earth we're going to do it well. As long as the ship is pushed hard enough, it should float on that vapor. So it's a lovely little thing where it's like it's hidden science, both real one and also Star Trek one. Having said that, I do wonder, and that is something that kind of took me just a little bit out of what was happening on the screen. How exactly do they hold on to the ship's hull when they head into the storm? Murph was like, yeah, we arrived. And stuff is blowing. Obviously, this is not a quiet storm. It's a storm. My first thought was like, well, maybe their shoes are magnetized. That's something that we know has happened in, First Contact or in one of the movies, I think, the original series movies. But then you get like Gwyn literally jumping over stuff, and they're obviously not moving in those clunky steps. So that's a question. There's got to be an explanation. And if something I just realized, and I never, when we talked about the ship getting stuck and Dal trying to, push it off with Runaway. What did they do with Runaway? Because the ship started sliding. Everybody rushed onto the ramp.
Did they just leave it?
Did they just leave Runaway? I hope not. Maybe it was kind of like I don't know, if Hologram Jamie pressed the button and beamed it on board or something, and we just don't see it. Let's go with that. Let's go with that.
Self-drive into the bay or something, and everybody else is running back. We didn't get to see it, though. Okay, Aaron Walke, paging Aaron Walke. We gotta know.
We have questions, yes.
We'll have to have him back. That's all there is to it. Well, yes. I'm glad you had questions about the vapor ocean, because I did too, and just like, how does this all working? It's a violent storm. If it's a vapor ocean, does that mean that this vapor is really dense? If a starship like the Protostar can basically float on it, like that's how that works, right? Is with density, lighter objects float.
I think so. So I think this would be a good question for Dr. Aaron too.
Yes, it would.
I wonder if she had anything to do with this. It's not entirely like an astrophysics thing, but maybe this is something that's a good question, or perhaps a question to Dr. Dave, who's a planetary scientist. So that's a possibility. But you are right. I mean, it would have to be pretty dense, which kind of brings another question then. When Chakotay falls in, I mean, he does look a little bit knocked out, perhaps by the rope, but it could be also difficulty breathing. Dal jumps straight back in. They're both humanoid. Granted, Dal is such a mishmash of different things. Perhaps he has easier way of dealing with it physiologically. Nevertheless, how do they both breathe? How do they breathe in that mixture?
I had this question as well. If it's so dense, you think it would just suffocate them or crush them, or... But with Dal, you know what? Maybe with his genetically engineered DNA, maybe sort of like how Murph became a Murph maid. Maybe he can grow, like he had gills that activated. He was all right. I don't know. I'm totally spitballing.
Chakotay would definitely have problem. I mean, he would need, you need oxygen. So what's going on in the vapor ocean? So yes, again, we have
paging Dr. Aaron. And anybody else who's willing to answer, we have questions about science, and this is where we could have used some Rock Talk exposition, maybe.
Yeah, you know what? That's actually a bit of an aside. I'm surprised that we didn't have as much from Rock, except just saying like, we're gonna basically sail on a giant gas cloud.
Maybe there just wasn't time.
It's quite possible. I mean, there's a lot going on. I mean, we barely get anything from Zero except for some fun quips. Speaking of quips. Dal has some good ones. My favorite is probably when they created the sail, they're ready to start on their journey, and he says, "My starship makes a pretty good ship." For some reason, it just made me laugh. And then, of course, him trying to kind of pun on, saying like, "Well, we have antimatter that the Drake collected. Now we need to collect matter so that you can start the reaction in the warp core." And he just goes, "So, what's the matter?" It's Dal being Dal. Yeah.
He's so on point in this episode, as is Jankum, and he always is, but I really genuinely did laugh.
Yes.
Yeah, I've never been so happy to have gas. Of course. That's such a Jankum line.
That's perfect. So speaking of, I guess the way Dal is behaving, my original thought was like, well, yeah, he's sort of like, we already saw that in several other episodes when he's kind of reverting to his own sort of irreverent, shoot from the hip type of, guy. But I like the fact that we have far more explanation. So like it's very obvious from what he says to Chakotay that whatever it is that he saw in the orb of time disturbed him far more than he let on. So it could be like the catalyst. And now there's additional bit with Chakotay being heavily involved in, and Dal does have issues with authority. So I think that's kind of like we have very clear understanding of why Dal is the way he is. I mean, I should say behaving the way he is in this episode.
Yeah.
And the fact that they have that heart to heart with Chakotay, and it certainly helps to kind of settle him and give him a way forward.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, he's definitely a lot more shook than he'd like to let on. But yeah, we'll have to definitely dive into the discussion with Chakotay and Dal. Yeah. But another little side note, I speaking of funny things that I appreciated was Zero basically getting seasick. His insides don't want to be inside him. Right. Welcome to corporeal life, Z.
Yeah, so it's really just that moment, and there was one moment where, again, I had a question because I didn't quite get like why it didn't get any further development in this particular episode. But the fact that Majel was kind of behaving rather weirdly towards him. It's like, no, this is my responsibility. I don't want your help.
Yeah.
And then nothing else really happened. So I don't know if that's something that we're going to see progress or develop or be explained further on. We shall see.
Yes.
To finish off and says something about Jankum. Is it me, or was he basically channeling Scotty? There is a moment where it's like, keep her steady, keep Protostar steady.
Give her all she's got.
It's like, I'm trying to keep it in one piece. It literally has that sort of thing. It's like, I'm giving it all she's got,
Exactly.
So Jankum is the perfect Starfleet engineer at that moment.
Before you know it, he's going to be multiplying his repair estimates by a factor of 4. It's going to happen.
Quite possible, yeah.
Well, how about we move into the discussion? Because there's such good, meaty stuff in here. I really, really, really want to get into this discussion. Leading off with a great point you made about Janeway and Chakotay. Why don't you take it away?
Well, the wonderful thing here, one of the things that comes across very clearly, and as a matter of fact, Beverly Crusher is the one to literally out loud say that, is the fact that Janeway and now Chakotay as well are basically parent figures to the crew. And we're not only talking about the kids. In a way, they're parent figures to the actual crew, the adults that crew, Voyager A or any other ship that either one of, Voyager, of course. Especially Voyager, considering what a motley crew that was. But I like the fact that it's discussed, you're more mother than you realize, and it's kind of a very similar faith and a very similar way of relating to the crew in a way, especially the way Janeway is, probably given her experience on Voyager. There's a wonderful Kirsten Beyer novel, post Voyager, called Protectors. I do not know if there was ever any discussion where Beyer explained why the title was Protectors. I always felt that it was specifically in reference to both of them. As a matter of fact, Janeway and Chakotay are on the cover of the novel. So it's in both their nature to be supportive, to be nurturing to those who are in their care, who are under their command. So I think it's really nicely woven into Prodigy, especially seeing that we are dealing primarily with the crew who are, cadet hopefuls who are basically kids. Yeah, they're teenagers, but nevertheless, they are kids. And, some of whom, such as Dal, never really had any kind of parental care. So it's all very fitting, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. With Prodigy being such a continuation of Voyager, I love that this dynamic is here and better than ever. Because on Voyager, that was one of Voyager's greatest strengths, was that the show really was more of a family. They were out there all alone. All they had was each other. And Janeway and Chakotay were like mom and dad, minding the store, keeping the kids in line, all of that. They really were like mom and dad to that crew. And nurturing others doesn't necessarily have to be strictly in the biological sense. It can be as a ship captain to a crew, or any adult to a child, to be a role model. And another thing that I've noticed is that even though they aren't doing this together right now, Janeway and Chakotay are acting as parents to our crew.
Yeah.
Together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
very
like
much so.
on Voyager.
And then, of course, the big scene that we already mentioned, where Chakotay approaches Dal to find out what's going on. And we have them sitting down, and you basically, you see Chakotay, Chakotay's wisdom. It sounds very highbrow, but it basically him. He remembers the way he was in his youth. So he is very much connected to this moment. He can relate to Dal. So, this whole, his own experience of finding his peace through the sense of belonging, which is exactly what Dal is struggling with. That's what he was searching through the entirety of the first season. Like, where do I belong? What am I?
Still working on it.
The fact that it works, Dal hears him, he regains his confidence. I mean, that moment when Chakotay gets thrown overboard, Dal jumps to save him without, like a blink of an eye. He doesn't even think about it. So this is like I said, this scene is just next to perfect, I think.
It is. I think last week you brought up Chakotay being the angry warrior. Well, you know what? I think Dal is also an angry warrior, and these characters have so much in common that this scene makes so much sense. Chakotay is an ideal role model for Dal because he has been through a lot of this stuff, and he's still here, and he can help Dal navigate a whole lot better than the resources Chakotay had. One thing that I really notice and appreciate about this scene is that it's not bonk bonk on the head, but this is a really beautiful example of male bonding. In our day and day, we're still fighting the stereotype that real men don't talk about their feelings and we don't get vulnerable with one another. This scene calls that out, says, no, this is how it's done, shows us why it's important, and doesn't tell us any of that. It just shows it, and it's so beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. So it's a tremendous scene. Kudos to Aaron for creating something as beautiful as that. And let's see where it goes on, because Chakotay is now back into his, like I said, mentor self. And, Dal certainly heard him.
Yeah. And look at the transformative nature of simply having that conversation for them both. Yeah. So good. Thank you, Aaron, for writing that. And it's such a beautiful moment. The one other thing I want to throw into the discussion, sort of an offshoot, is, especially in American culture, and I know that you're not originally American, so please give any perspective that you can from a European perspective.
Yeah.
We in this country want to be right. We have to succeed. Everything has to go perfect. You can't make mistakes, and you've got to have it under control. And so Dal really puts on that brave front, right? But you know what? It's okay to ask questions if you don't know how to do something or what something is. I think this is something we need to learn in America, because even good leaders don't know everything. Chakotay certainly hasn't. Janeway doesn't always know, and it's okay.
Yeah.
And now Dal had to learn this lesson the really hard way by not knowing how to operate the jib.
Yeah. And I mean, it almost led to another disaster, which we already saw what happens when Dal screws things up.
Yeah.
But you're right. This is another very good lesson for this thing. Like, you don't know everything. Don't feign it, actually ask somebody, you're part of the team. Somebody's bound to know what's going on or how to do it. That's something that, it's not just strictly American. I'm sure that pops up everywhere. So it's best to ask, it never hurts to ask the questions.
Right. And it's okay. Like, it's good to believe in yourself and to have confidence in yourself. But at the same time, know where you're at and work with what you have. And that'll help you get to where you really want to be, Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think Dal has learned this lesson a couple times, but here we go again. I think just the mere fact that he was so shaken by what he saw in his future, maybe he slipped a little. And he's overcompensating by being overconfident, overly brave, putting out that front, when really that's only making him feel that much more insecure inside.
Yeah. So I think we covered most of the stuff, especially all the main things. So we probably best wrap up.
Okay.
Final discussion points. It's more of a summary on my end. Again, I love the fact that we're back to Chakotay, the mentor Chakotay, the role model. Yes, I love the fact that Chakotay generally is back. Although I would say, this is not a quick fix just because, it's great, he finally got off the planet. He's probably going to need some heavy-duty therapy once he gets back to Starfleet. But
Agreed.
It is great to see him regain his composure because, he's back being part of the team. And, of course, the fact that we get an introspective Dal, where it's like, yes, he did screw up, he has these things, but the fact that we have the moment where somebody says what's going on, and he actually says it. He says like, yes, there's this disappointment. I'm trying to do this thing and it doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, what good am I? So in this case, he keeps learning and therefore he keeps growing. So this was a very nice development for Dal. We got a twist to it. He's grown.
Yeah, he has turned a corner here. Like, I don't think he's going to make the same kind of mistake and have to learn the same lesson in the same way anymore. Like, lest we forget, he's an adolescent. And these are the kind of questions that you're asking as an adolescent and trying to figure things out. And how does this all work? And navigating the world, it's very difficult. And this episode is such a prime example of showing that in action through Dal, who doesn't have it all figured out. You know, I think a lot of times when you are in that stage, you feel like other people have it together because that's the front people put on. And maybe they do and maybe they don't. But you are insecure in yourself because you know what you are working on. And that is Dal. And that's all of us, if truth be told. So this is such a beautiful episode. I'm going to watch it over and over and over and over again when we are done with our coverage. This will always be a go-to comfort food episode for me.
I also love the fact that, that's it. We shoot out that, Dal's like, we're so far ahead, we can rebuild a star.
Talk about confidence.
Having said that, even though it's not like we have a cliffhanger, it's not like anything. Lest we forget, there's still no news from Solum. So I have a feeling.
You're not letting this go, are you?
I have a feeling there's about to be like an explosion of something because it's been far too quiet on that end of things. So,
it's true.
And with them, again, I mean, at this point, it's sort of like we know there are more two-parters coming. So it's almost as if we're getting the equivalent of basically feature films with all that incredible action going on.
Yeah. So many two-parters in the back half.
Yeah. So I think in the next episode, we're going to have probably a bit of a relief, a little bit of a standalone. We shall see. And then onwards where I am sure we're going to hear what's going on and, find out how exactly are we going to fix the temporal stuff.
That's right.
That's still out there.
Yep, and we've still got plenty of show to go. I think we've reached the end of this one, though. And before we do go, we have that one last thing to do, which is the special code for the giveaway. And this week, your code is HMS Protostar. HMS Protostar. So go to that link provided in the description of this episode, put in that code, get your entries in. We see how many have come in already. That is awesome. Hope you guys are having fun with it as much as we are. And then also, of course, check out the social media channels in case you need a little nudge. We'll remind you to keep entering.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here on Mission Log Prodigy. If you enjoyed the show, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our Mission Log Prodigy playlist on the Roddenberry Entertainment YouTube channel, or find us on your podcast catcher of choice. Mission Log Prodigy is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment, production and technical direction by Earl Green. Our website and your opportunity to comment or connect with us is missionlogpodcast.com. And if you'd like to support Mission Log directly, you can do so at patreon.com/missionlog.
Next week, we will examine a triple called Quest in the Mission Log Lab. And cadets, please don't forget to watch that episode and send us your thoughts no later than Saturday, September 28th. Since it is not a two-parter, you don't get extra time. So please, we can't wait to hear what you have to say about that. And we'll feature your voice messages at the end of our next show. So until next week, live logs and proper, go fast, and here's our cadet thoughts on the last flight of the Protostar.
Receiving listener communications. Message playback begins.
What's your name?
James.
Did you like the episode?
Yes.
What was your favorite part?
When they finally find the Protostar.
And what did you learn?
that being marooned on a planet for 10 years does something to a person.
Okay, what's your name and age?
My name is Brooke and my age is 9.
Brooke, did you like these 2 episodes?
Yes.
What was your favorite part of the episodes?
My favorite part of the episodes was when the ship actually flew.
Yeah, that was cool with watching them escape at the end. What did you learn from the episodes?
I learned from the episodes that you should never leave your crew behind.
Right, really a theme for the season. I like how Dal went after Chakotay, and Chakotay kind of went after Dal too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.